We're going live. We're live.
We're live?
YouTube. Yep.
All right. Excellent. All right. Let's kick things off here. Brandon. Hail cheaters. Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. My name is Josh L. I'm here with Brandon S.K. Brandon S.K., how are you?
Good. I always like to redact the most important information.
Only middle and last initial. Yeah.
Foolish podcast hosts would dox themselves, not us, not today.
Yeah.
We are fools in other rights when we talk about Game Week 7. And there is Game Week 7 is a peculiar one. A lot of people will have had good game weeks. Other people will be sad going into the international break. And this, I think, is what I dislike most about the international breaks is it really gives you a long pause to think about what you've done. And,
yes. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's bad.
Yeah. Maybe you and I had opportunities to do good things with our teams and maybe not. I feel like in the last week we dispensed some good wisdom, at least.
I thought about that. I thought about that earlier. I actually have a kind of working theory about all of this now, which is that because I feel like because I've been thinking about this, especially because I've been doing these Substacks where I'm trying to offer like proper takes on like every match, right? And it's like one of the things I talked about was how. In the one this week was how much I would absolutely captain Saka if I had him, right? And then I kind of had a parenthetical note, which is like, I don't know why I don't have him either, right? Mm-hmm. And I think on the podcast as well, I think that we're offering our genuine best advice that we can give, right? Yeah. Like the genuine but I am finding, and I just don't know how much of this is a function of playing the game as long as we have. That I am a little bit stuck in a mode where if you were to ask me like objectively, when I'm making my transfers, right? Like, am I making the absolute best, perfect kind of optimal transfer, right? And I would say in many cases, the answer is no. I'm making the transfers that I feel like making because I want to have the team that I want, right? And they're on some level. I want it to be different, and I want it to have people that are not widely owned, across the game, because that's how I think the game is going to stay fun for me over the years. However, when things and that's mostly worked fine this season, right? Totally fine going into this game week. But when it doesn't work out and the sort of all the popular players that you don't have kind of go off. I mean, I guess it was really just Saka, right? But that Saka thing was such a blow, not having him. That
the thing with the Arsenal match, it was the talking point going into Game Week 7 because of Southampton, the season that they're having, and then the match that they played against Bournemouth, which they looked just like apocalyptically bad.
Yep.
And everyone was just salivating. Home at the Emirates, get your Arsenal assets ready. Yep. And then you have to factor in the narrative around Arsenal has also been sort of like previous seasons with Man City of like, well, I've got this City asset or that City asset. I don't necessarily know which one is going to go off. That's not City now. It's all Haaland.
Right.
But Arsenal was tricky business because Saka is the talismanic figure there, but he has basically this season become Morgan Gibbs-White. All of his points are coming from corner kicks.
Right.
Of course, we knew that Saka is not Morgan Gibbs-White, and he has so many more tricks in his bag.
Much higher ceiling, fewer red cards, most likely. Yeah.
So me, for example, I made the what I thought was the clever move a couple of weeks ago, getting Kai Havertz, which ultimately has worked out. It's been a good move. I've got 2 goals and 2 from him, and I'm happy with that. But what it really just left me adrift in Game Week 7 because If I had Saka, yes, suddenly he feels like captain material. Havertz, I wasn't there yet, and I ultimately went with Haaland. So it is a captaincy discussion coupled with Saka exacted his revenge on all the haters and doubters this game week.
Yeah, and in the second half too. I mean, I think sometimes the worst returns from a player you don't own are the ones where you feel like you almost got away with it, right? There's that moment, I think it was like the 53rd minute or something like that, where I'm watching Well, I won't even talk about it, Brent. I won't even talk about the program that I hate watch every Saturday morning because it takes them so long to rush from one goal, from one goal to the next, Brandon.
Sure.
But I'm not going to talk about what that program is. Okay.
No.
If I were, I might call it goal crawl or something like that because, goal. Well, anyway,
savage.
I don't, but I'll say no more. Well, whatever. It could be better. Okay. And it will be when I'm in charge of things. But anyway, so, but there's the goal, like there's a little notification, right? Goal scored at the bottom.
Sure.
You're like, oh, okay, here we go. The floodgates have been unleashed, and they're like, oh, wait a second, Southampton have scored. Oh my goodness! But then they're like, oh, in the time it took us to show you the Southampton goal, a second goal has been scored for Arsenal, and it was very nice Saka assist. And suddenly it was like, oh my gosh, this could be very open. I do think it's interesting that that clean sheets just don't exist anymore. Like you can't get clean sheets from Arsenal or Man City, and it's like but it doesn't really it's not held up in the numbers, right? It's like you sort of going by the defensive numbers so far this season. Like those are probably arguably still the two best defensive teams. Like maybe Liverpool are kind of in that top three with them as well. And they did keep a clean sheet, to their credit today. But it's really interesting. I mean, just the double up on Arsenal, getting the Man City defender. Sorry, I'm going to cough here, but
as you do, we'll remind everybody that we're a podcast first platform, but we're also on YouTube, and we got our first ever YouTube super chat from Siddharth Gabajar. Siddharth, thank you for tuning in. Yep. He has a question for you, Josh.
I would have said his name perfectly if I had gone. But
why no Arsenal players and an Arsenal fans team? Now you do have Saliba, but I think the question here is, what was your expectation for the Southampton match? Because you burned 4 in your transfer window to get Palmer and Watkins.
Absolute nightmare, total disaster. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the thinking was just that I thought I could get away with it, and that basically Palmer could. The goal originally was to have Salah for 3 weeks, roughly, and then move him to Saka ahead of this nice run of fixtures, and then I sort of talked myself into not making that move right away. Honestly, the real move would have been to just have Saka going, I don't know, the entire season. Like there was, there's at every
showing
point,
no
it would have been
signs
fine.
Of slowing down. It's true.
Yeah. The one match he doesn't ever return so far this season, he got a bonus point. So, so he's been,
so crazy when you put it that way.
I know he's been fantastic. And so,
right.
And so I've gotten a couple calls wrong, and what I'm trying to be better. Like, honestly, I'm just trying to keep my my levels up, be sort of not like the actual microphone levels here, although that too, I don't want to be pounding my desk or anything like that, but I just don't want to come on here and complain anymore like that. I just don't want that to be like the person that you hear on the podcast, which is a change from the first 400 or so episodes that we've done, Brandon. And I think that's it represents an attempt at some kind of personal growth. But we talked about a little bit on the Patreon pod this week, which was and I will get back to the original question about Arsenal. We talked about whether you really should even think about overall rank anymore, and whether there's a kind of baseline of competency that runs throughout all of FPL that did not exist a few years ago. So to the point where you're just, it's honestly just increasingly hard to kind of, if you overall rank as a thing that's going to determine your happiness or level of satisfaction in fantasy, it's going to be increasingly hard for that to be it's increasingly hard for that to be a path to happiness, right? And that the trick may be to invest more in your mini leagues. And if you feel like, oh my God, I just went from 1 million to 2 million or whatever. Well, how far did you fall in your mini leagues, right? Are you probably, maybe it feels horrible, but then you look at the mini leagues that you care about the most about, whether those are, leagues where everyone throws in a little bit of money, or even just a competitive league with a friend or a head-to-head, like whatever it may be, right? You may only be 37 points off of first place, right? With 3 chips left on the season or whatever, right? Like there's all kinds of things that are still sort of out there to go for. And yeah, maybe top 10K is going to be trickier, but maybe that just shouldn't be your metric to begin with, right? Because it can be, if you've had a great start, you've made a lot of good decisions and you're top 70K right now, then yes, sure. But otherwise, why spend the next 15 or 20 weeks getting frustrated that you're not doing as well as you can when there's all these other kind of things that you can invest in, right? And if you don't have a good mini league, and again, I know I'm kind of repeating what we said on the Patreon pod on Thursday, but if you don't have a good mini league, find one friend, like, if it's somebody who's never played FPL before, then rope somebody in. Like, just convince them, hey, we can start completely fresh here, right? Maybe I'm not suggesting this, Brandon, okay? But I will just say one option. If you're like 7 million overall, delete your team, create it, or create an entirely new account with a different address, right? I mean, unless your goal
seem very attached to the history of their overall rank, and I think that's where you run into a lot of veteran fantasy managers who are like, game's gone. I can't do this anymore because they had a string of I've finished 44K OR for like 4 years in a row, and now I can't crack the top million. So it is. So maybe you just need to shed all of that.
Totally. And technically you can't manage multiple teams at the same time. So I'm not suggesting that you like break the rules of the game or whatever, but like maybe you just stop managing one team and just start fresh I mean, you're not going to win the league if you start in game week 8. Right. And so it's not that.
Okay. So live on the podcast, Josh, delete your team.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm just going to throw it out there. But back on the Arsenal thing. So so I missed out on the one really good game week last week, and my thinking was he still has a couple of really nice fixtures before it gets tricky for a few weeks. Why don't I just go with Cole Palmer and just kind of go in on this player who thankfully he did get a return. It shows how
great too.
Yeah, and even with the yellow card, he ended up on 2 bonus, and so it is 10 fewer points than Saka, but credit to Saka owners, right? I mean, it was the right decision. It was the smart move. It was what everybody suggested, all the models and everything else, right? So that was a win. And I think for us, the question now is, if it is a question, I mean, are 2 data points from Haaland enough for us to get a little worried there? I mean, are we? He cut for the second week in a row. A very isolated figure, right? I mean, he barely had a touch the 2 matches in a row.
It was really reminiscent.
Not counting the Champions League.
Totally, it was reminiscent of him at the end of last season, where he had a bit of a drought as well. Yeah. And I have Salah and Haaland, and that's where I really hit a deficit this week. I finished on 40 points and a red arrow. So my overall feeling is game week 7, has the game actually started yet? Meaning, what do we know? And we're going to try to answer that question later on in the episode, because we're going to do our classic international break kings of the game week, and we're going to try to see if we can establish any patterns through game week 1 through 7. But I think that it's a really interesting comparison of Haaland plus Salah to Palmer plus Saka. It's not like apples to apples because Haaland is that premium forward. But I think what I'm feeling is it's like I every week you have to resist the knee jerk. And Cole Palmer went absolutely supernova in game week 6. And I thought a lot of cooler heads prevailed there of what was the matchup like against Brighton? What do we expect against Nottingham Forest? And still, Palmer looked good, got his assist, surely could have easily had more returns than that. And if you compare that Palmer performance to Mo Salah or even Erling Haaland, neither of those players were as close to Palmer in getting points. So what I'm trying to say is, and then on top of that, the just sheer consistency through it all of Saka. Everyone's looking at the ceiling of Salah and of Haaland and the captaincy potential. And here is just another wrinkle in the season of Saka has proven this week that he is captain material. So going into the international break, the preferred duo of these premium players has to be Saka and Palmer. And I just quickly, I do want to emphasize that I don't feel like that is knee jerk because Salah and Haaland blank, because as you're trying to set this up, like, what evidence do we have, Josh?
Yeah.
And I think the evidence through the first 7 weeks is this sheer model of consistency with Saka and Palmer. Now I'm not saying get rid of Haaland. I'm just saying this is where sort of like the focus is being drawn.
I know, and it does feel like the way forward is to somehow find a way to get 3 out of the 4, right? Because what we can't do is come on this pod every single week and there's always gonna be 2 of them to deliver, right? And it's like the temptation, and you and I were just here like a week ago, right? Which is like Haaland. It's always, it's still Haaland. Nothing's, and then it's like he blanks. The other 2 guys go no, and now it's Palmer. I'm not saying you're saying that, but it's just like it's sort of.
You. No, you're right. Yeah. You're right. It's every week we're casting about like which one of these guys is gonna go off, and it literally could be any of them. And then, so I think you're right. Like it feels like we're moving toward a threemium sort of template.
It's like the only way it makes sense.
Right, because otherwise you're going to try to fill in all the points, which you can do, randomly week to week by like prognosticating about like which Semenyo type figure is going to save your game week.
Right.
And I don't think we can afford to do that for 38 weeks.
No, I don't think so. And oh my God. Yeah. That Bournemouth Leicester match was another reminder that it's always good to take a step back and look at your squad, especially if you're in a wild card or something like that, and be like, do I have too many players from crap teams in my 11? Right. Like, did I get like a little too caught up in like upcoming number projections and player X and Y? And it's like, because we kind of talked about this a few weeks ago and I fell into the trap anyway, right? Which is like, basically it was like, just get Chris Wood because Forest are just a better team than Leicester or than even Everton, right? And Solanke. So just get him. And that has proven to be so true over the last few weeks, right? And so, I think they're like, just in general, team quality should be part of what you're thinking about when you're putting together your best 11. The other match that really killed me this week was the having a trio of players in the Aston Villa Man United match and having all 3 of them blank. And I just did not have that on my. That was not a 0-0 was not anywhere close to what I would have projected for that match. So I know the post Europa League. I guess it was Champions League in Villa's place, but there's a little bit of a hangover sometimes. But I just did not see that match being a 0-0. There was nothing from either squad the last few weeks that would have pointed to that. So I'm not sure if we should draw any conclusions or just treat it like a fluke.
Possibly. Manchester United just a bunch of rabble, and I guess Villa, for as good as they've been in moments the start of the season, they haven't been super fluid in scoring. So I feel like the 0-0 but
they've scored plenty.
I predicted a 2-1 to Villa in that, so I'm with you for the most part. The even more galling thing is we both had Konsa, and a 0-0 is great if you actually can have a defender who can survive.
17th minute, exactly. So just a tricky weekend. But I'm not looking at my overall rank, and I don't plan to. I'm gonna stay away from it for a while. So this week is there anything else I wanted to talk about? Oh, just a couple quick hits. Poro, are we see that match, the Spurs match was the kind of post Europa League match I was hoping for, right? I wanted a 7-goal thriller. That was the kind of match I was looking for. And then Everton getting the clean sheet as well, I thought was interesting, and sort of, I've been saying for a while, if they can start to figure things out a little, they were never really that bad. It was like they had kind of a couple fluky, like that Bournemouth match where they conceded 3 goals late, right? It's highly unlikely for a team to score 3 goals against you, even if you think that they're a pretty bad team. It's like to concede 3, there wasn't like Man City, right? It was just kind of there were signs that like they could, and they were quite good defensively to the end of last season too. So their defense though is full of players who are incredibly cheap. So if they are able to figure something out, then I don't know. There's something there. Yeah. Did you have you still had Newcastle's who am I I'm blanking on his name.
I have Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, Gordo. Your boy. Yeah,
that was definitely the sliding doors moment of my game week. And we all have that feeling as fantasy managers when your player steps up to take the pen. The impulse is always to like curl up in a ball and
like not even watch it. It's so true. It's like if I'm watching a pen where I have no stake in it, like in either one way or the other, like I don't want the player to make or miss it, I just assume he's going to drill it, right? And the second there's a fantasy stake in it, I'm assuming that it's not going to be close to going in.
Try a Panenka, it's going to go. So I blame Martin Tyler for this. Like as Gordon was getting ready to take the pen, he went into some soliloquy about Gordon talking about his penalty taking process after he scored the pen against Man City. And I was like, for the love of God, stop talking, Martin Tyler. Like this, you're jinxing this man straight to hell. And of course, also going then up against Jordan Pickford, you're like, well, Pickford is tremendous at stopping pens. So a potential 11-pointer turns into a 1-pointer. And even though I was chasing the Saka pack, that really probably would have got me a green arrow this week, and it's a totally different ball game. But here is the thing: it's about the process at the end of the day, and I put myself in that position. And I mean, it was super annoying because Gordon, to have him is a huge differential because you're kind of foolish to have Gordon at this point. Given how it's gone for Newcastle.
You just haven't, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say foolish.
I haven't had the ideal opportunity to drop him. And then you always look at Gordon and you say, especially with the Isak injury and Gordon moving into the number 9, you must recognize the potential. And there we are against Everton. All the potential is coalescing. And then he misses the bloody penalty and it all becomes a disaster. So that was not great.
You had no choice. I mean, with Isak out, you had to assume he was going to play. I mean, you got everything you wanted. Like you got the out of position player, just didn't score. So,
totally. I see your note here though about Pedro Porro. Is he over? I'm curious about this. I mean, Pedro Porro, like it's not been a blast owning Pedro Porro, but let's be clear, like this guy has more points than William Saliba.
That's true. I mean, I guess I'm just thinking 4 blanks and 5. He's just such a frustrating player to own in fantasy. And
I think the defense has been frustrating across the board. I mean, it really is Trent Alexander-Arnold or frustration. These are your options. I really don't know. And if you look at Spurs' upcoming fixtures, they're entering a decent enough run.
That's true. West Ham at home in 8.
That's
certainly it's not urgent.
Palace. It's Villa at home, which will be tricky, obviously, and then Ipswich at home. I don't think this is a moment to get rid of Porro.
I love that. Ipswich really is the new Luton Town. Everybody has an Ipswich fixture within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I don't understand. Just like last season, I feel like everybody was just about to play Luton Town, and you'd always hold because the Luton Town match was coming, and now it's everybody's got Ipswich. The same thing with Jamie Vardy. He plays Ipswich. So Ipswich has like I think they're playing 4 matches in game weeks, game week 8. So it's incredible.
A quadruple header. I will say just
it's like a split squad moment.
To try to be a little positive here. I've had some incredible luck in my transfers the last 3 game weeks. Mbomo comes in and he has scored in 3 consecutive weeks. Then Havertz comes in and he scored in 2 consecutive weeks. Delap was my last transfer and he scored against West Ham. Who will it be next?
You've sort of neutralized the effect of not having Salah. I mean, I know you're still in a red era, but it could have been worse, right? Like, but for
it could have been a lot worse, and at least I'll make a little bit of money off of Delap coming out of the break. But I think Delap is an interesting asset because I agree with you in like looking at your squad and trying to figure out like how many assets in my fantasy team do I have from poor teams. And as much as we want to will Ipswich to be a well-run, decent side, it's just not going that way. And Delap feels like, it just feels a little bit like playing the slot machine. And I'm not expecting Delap to be to pay out every week for sure.
No, but I mean, we did talk about this a little bit last week when you were talking about this transfer, and he's got a nice run of fixtures ahead. So it's at least it's not a problem.
If you're shy of players like Chris Wood, as you call out, I think he's a great option, and like he's got the pedigree for sure.
Yeah. Oh my God, I mean, having Wood and Saka before I wildcarded. I mean, I really just took a 2x4 to my squad this year. But again, I'm trying to stay positive. So the way for me to stay positive is just not talk about my team. And so that's I'm going to stick in that zone for now, which is fine. Like it's all good. And we're 7 weeks in, so there's 31 weeks to go. International break kicks off this week. Good timing, I think. Normally I don't enjoy these, but I actually feel like I need a little bit of a reset. And so I'm going to take advantage of this one. Coming out of the international break, Brandon will be back in New York City. So this will be I guess it'll be the weekend of the 19th of October.
Yeah.
15th, 19th. Yep, 19th of October. And that Saturday, we are planning a meetup for New York area listeners. It's going to be one of two locations. We're still debating between, I think between either the Black Horse or Smithfield. And so right. We'll let you know on next week's pod. But the important thing is to if you can clear your calendar and come out and meet us and say hey on Saturday of next week, that would
tell
be
your
awesome.
Family you're going grocery shopping or something.
Yeah, exactly. You're going out for milk and then come back in 4 hours. So that is where we are. I mentioned the Patreon pod earlier this week or earlier this episode. And I mentioned the pod that we did last. Anyway, let me restart here. I mentioned a Patreon pod, Brand, that we recorded last week. Okay. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, get access to those pods, get access to the Discord. One of the things we talked about on last week's pod is that we want to ramp up the contests that we're doing. Again, just a way to make sure that we have stuff that keeps fantasy fun, even if you I don't know, even if you're 3.9 million overall and you just want something new and fresh and fun, we're going to figure out new ways to do that. I think we're going to try to that's one thing we're going to think a little more about over the next couple of weeks. And when you're in New York, we're going to talk about that a little bit too. So, but thank you to 3 new Patreon supporters: Gene Armis, Zacharias Nadir. I hope that's Zacharias' real name, because that's an incredible name, Zacharias Nadir. And sure Tim, and Tim Hamer, who just became a Sam Volkswagen level supporter, Brandon. So thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. All of our Patreon supporters. You can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating to support the podcast at any pledge level. Even the lowest pledge level gets you access to our Discord. And then up from there, you get giveaways, all kinds of fun stuff. So, and then the Super League code is QVC0ND. Brandon, I didn't pull the Super League top 10, but you know what? We'll just do it on next week's pod. How about that?
Yeah, it gives you a reason to tune in.
Tune in next week. Yeah, exactly.
Of course, tune in next week.
We'll have at least 10 listeners next week now. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There is reason to get excited about this international break. I put on my USA men's national team Dos a Cero hat because this international break will see the first games managed by Mauricio Pochettino.
That's true.
I have to figure out how to pronounce.
I don't know. That's that's new.
Pochettino.
Okay.
So you got to find a little something to root for. I mean, what else do you want to see this international break, Josh? Just like hamstrings popping all over the place, twanging, lots of twanged muscles.
Yeah, I feel like I just need a full on break. I don't actually quite know what to do with my. It's actually the game week ahead. The game week when you're in town, Brandon, is I think quite a tricky game week. We can talk about it more next week, but. You have Man City away to Wolves, Chelsea away to Liverpool, Villa away to Fulham, even Arsenal away to Bournemouth. I mean, that's not like a extremely hard fixture, but like we all have and are starting in Bomo right now. He plays away to Man United. Like none of these fixtures are out and out horrible, but like they're all tricky, right? Every single one is a little bit tricky. And so I think there's a lot for us to it could be a really swingy week next week, which I think if you had a bad game week this week, sometimes swingy is good, right? It sort of opens you up to rebound a little bit. So let's let's go from there, Brandon. And I want to get into Kings of the Game Week. And the way that we do this for anyone who has never listened before, and I'll do for anyone who's watching us, what I'm doing right now, and we will not we will make sure to reference what we're actually talking about here. So we will not. This is not just
exercise good podcast etiquette.
Yeah, this is not a YouTube exclusive by any means. We've been doing this on the podcast as an audio form for a long time. So what we're doing is basically every week the fantasy game puts together the best possible team that you could have had this week, right? And in fact, they actually cheat a little bit because sometimes it includes 5 Man City players or something like that. But basically,
out of budget. It's basically just basically,
if you just put together, but you often see a lot of surprises in there as well. But you also there are recurring names as well. I mean, it's funny. I'm just looking at Game Week 1 right now, and I already see Kovacic on here, right? Who is one of the stars of Game Week 7, right?
Yeah. So I forgot about that.
Yeah, and so exactly. So it's an interesting kind of storytelling experience to look into, to look at the best possible team. And the reason we call it Kings of the Game Week is because for one short season, Budweiser was the sponsor of the best possible team of the game week. Budweiser apparently didn't get the ROI that they were expecting, Brandon, and so they have not sponsored. But you and I have picked up the conch shell, and we are continuing this sponsorship in absentia. So it's always cheating. Kings of the Game Week. So let's kick things off, Brandon, here with Game Week 1. See what we can learn, if anything, from Game Week 1. So we have so again, what we talked about before, which is that you have in any particular game week, 2 of the 4 kind of superstars are going to deliver, and it's unclear which ones it's going to be at any point, right? So in Game Week 1, and I wonder, actually, this will be an interesting experiment for us. If we go all 7 weeks, will we see 2 of the 4? I guess we won't in Game Week 7, right? Because that was the first time you had 3 out of 4. Palmer did get a return, but he won't make the best team. So this week, though, we had Salah and Saka in Game Week 1. Salah had 14 points. Saka had 12. I kind of forgot how well Saka did in this one. Kovacic also got in this one, Brandon. I can't remember what did he get a goal?
2 goals? No, I'm sorry. A goal, and that was it.
And then 3 bonus points. Yeah, right. So goal, clean sheet bonus, and 3.
11. Yeah.
11 the hard way, Brandon. That's the old school 11.
Yeah.
The midfielders 5 plus 1.
They said Kovacic has to play a perfect game in order to pull out this team of the week, and there he did it.
To
prove all the haters and doubters wrong.
Yeah. Your boy Joel Linton, or you call him Joel Linton or whatever, but
sure.
Joe Linton is also in this team.
Kid Joe, that's what I call him. Ugly Kid Joe.
It's weird that
90s band.
He's not been not horrible this season, but he is definitely. It feels to me like he's taken a little bit of a step back.
I had this exact same thought watching Everton. Like Joe Linton is. That whatever magic was in his boots the last couple of seasons appears to be gone. It's not the same. And
he was their most important player when he went down with injury last. I mean, who knows? Maybe the injury is still a factor, right? It's probably
Credit to Gramarish, who's kind of picked up a lot of that slack. But this team is only really at its best when Joel Linton is at his best, weirdly, and he's well off it, I think.
Yeah. And I think, we talked about Kai Havertz a lot on this pod already. Kai Havertz made the best Game Week 1 team as well. He had 12 points. And I think in general, we probably just consistently shortchanged him in our preview podcasts. He had played quite well down the stretch last season. He came in at a fair price, right? I think his $8 million was his starting price this year. I don't know, just personally, he never really made any of my drafts. I wasn't really looking very closely at him, and but he's really put together already quite a nice season. He's got 4 goals, 1 assist on the season, up to 7 bonus points, which is really impressive. So any thoughts on Kai Havertz and maybe what you've seen that surprised you?
What I've seen is just the level of balance in his game. Certainly, you remember Havertz at Chelsea, where he was really just a runner, and that Chelsea team, while they won the Champions League, was good, tactically kind of all over the place over the course of the seasons. And Havertz just seems to have a very while it's a defined role, under Arteta, it's also kind of a wide-ranging role. Like he takes up a lot of different positions depending on what the where the ball is and what the game state is. All that said, like it seems like he's fully dialed in this season, and whenever he gets the ball, he is in control. Like he is. Yeah, he's sort of mastered whatever this brief is from Arteta, and I think what I would say about Havertz fantasy wise is, if you had been eyeing up a time to get on board with Ollie Watkins, I think let me present to you Kai Havertz. I feel like Havertz is better than Watkins as a fantasy pick right now, which is kind of, I didn't expect to be saying that.
Yeah, I still don't know if I long term if I feel that way, but I don't know. I mean,
well, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
So triple Arsenal, the double Arsenal defense has now been sort of like roundly debunked over the last.
You'd be better if you had literally if you had just gone the whole season without an Arsenal defender, you'd be in a better spot right
so
now.
I do.
I mean, I guess Gabriel has scored a couple goals.
I wonder if Saka, Havertz, and an Arsenal defender is an optimal way to play Arsenal with your fantasy team.
Makes sense. I mean, it also explains why Arsenal are good this year, right? Like you go right through the spine, and like, I think it's. I was thinking about Havertz at Chelsea and how I still kind of think of him as a little bit of a flop there, and maybe that's sort of hilarious. Like he literally scored a game-winning goal in a Champions League final for Chelsea, and I still am like, like he's pretty good, you know. It's like, but it did feel like he kind of left when he left Chelsea. No one quite knew what he was going to look like at Arsenal, right? And he really has stepped up. He sort of joined the ranks of. Just to finish my thought, it's just like such a funny thing because it feels like he's like a new addition to the, like, Chelsea have just too massive of a squad, and what ends up happening is they end up flipping these really talented players because they can't quite establish a role. And this has happened. That happened to KDB. It happened to Mo Salah. It happened to Havertz, arguably too. And I'm not putting him in the category of those two players, but it does seem to happen a lot. That they it's like they scout it right, but then they don't quite. It's like they scout too many good players or something.
And Havertz is that kind of a player where, coming from the Bundesliga, he was typically played like, I feel like I want to say he played on the right wing, but he was just like, he wasn't like a Sergio Aguero type, classic number 9, plug him into your team tactics. He had the talent to make the leap from Leverkusen to the Premier League. He took that dive. That took bravery on his part. He went to a team that was kind of just going through all sorts of changes while he was trying to figure out what his game was. Yeah. So I do think that he gets a lot of leeway from me for like allowing him that time to grow into the player that he now is. Yeah,
I think it's real credit to Arteta, I think, for really, I don't know. It seems like he's like he put a lot of faith into him, and it's really worked out. So, but yeah, I mean, even from a fantasy point of view, I think I can't remember. I feel like when he was at Bayer Leverkusen, he was like more of like a number 10, but then he was playing as a false 9, like when he like around the time the move got made. I know this because that was the one summer we did fantasy Bundesliga, Brandon, during the COVID summer, and I had him in my fantasy Bundesliga team, and I got a break. I'll never forget this because the Bundesliga was like the first team to the first league to restart. And so all of us were like, I'll watch anything. I'll watch literally anything. And so it was like that first weekend. I remember Haaland scored for Dortmund in like an empty stadium, and Kai Havertz scored a brace in front of nobody. I feel like I'll never forget the noise of like a goal being scored in an empty stadium. That kind of metallic, like it's bizarre.
Just the sound of the ball hitting the chains of the back of the net.
Yeah, exactly. I thought I wanted to keep the energy up, Brandon. That's why I like to bring COVID into any podcast discussion as much as possible.
Sure, and Bundesliga.
Yeah, and Bundesliga. All right, let's move on to there's more to say for Game Week 1, but we can't go through every single player. Let's move on to Game Week 2, Brandon. Yeah. We do see our first Arsenal defender, though, David Raya, Game Week 2. That was the game week you might recall away to Aston Villa, where he had one of the best saves I feel like I've ever seen. Like one of the best, maybe the stakes because it's only game week 2, but it was just an incredible save. And outrageous. And then Son had his kind of one big match this season. Otherwise, it's been a pretty disappointing year for him, I'd say. And now he's injured, and it's
Timo Werner put on a speaking of former Bundesliga guys, put on a clinic in how to not play in Son's role against Brighton.
Yeah, I was shocked that match ended 3-2. I mean, just given where it started, but So we've got so in the game week 2 squad though has Palmer. So we got one of the big four. Haaland, of course, as well. He had 17 points this week. Luis Diaz had his kind of first really big match. I'm starting to. Okay, now you can start to worry a little bit. I think if you're a Diaz owner, right? I think now that we're seeing, it's just it just feels like we're now seeing what we kind of were worried about going into the season, which was the 4 players for 2 spots problem at Liverpool, right? Which is and maybe Darwin is like a distant fourth, but still, I mean, he has started a match already this season, right? And so you have you have Cody Gakpo, Jota, Diaz, and Darwin, and they're all good enough to start for Liverpool, right? And Salah is the only one who's like a real consistent fixture. So I don't know. I think there's a little bit of I wouldn't necessarily again be hitting the panic button, but I can understand moving him on. I do. I get it if you do it.
I think Luis Diaz is, to put it generously, he's in the Phil Foden zone of highly rated, great fantasy asset. However, you are now going to have to sweat every team sheet.
Yeah.
When he starts,
Man City style.
Whenever you see that he's starting, you feel free to flex on your mini league rivals. Things could go pretty well for you. But the concern is you don't know what his minutes are going to be.
This was the match, the game week where Madueke had 20 points, and
Wolves just didn't know what to do with Chelsea this week.
Yeah, and proceeded to blank the next 3. Did get an assist last week, and then scored. Got 3 bonus points today. I don't know if I have the shot data here. I'd be curious. It felt like he took a ton of shots in this match. Maybe I'll pull it up as we're talking here.
And as a non-Palmer owner, watching the Forest match, I just love every time Madueke gets the ball, and I see Palmer in space. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. But if Madueke has the ball, I'm like, oh, I'm good. There's no way Madueke doesn't shoot the ball. He's not passing it.
He took 7 shots in this match. So that 7 shots with 0.3 xG, which is so not maybe ideal considering that includes a goal that he actually scored in the match, but 0.43 x expected assists as well. So I mean, he's very involved. I don't know. I mean, he's still he's in that weird price zone where he's kind of. I mean, honestly, would you rather have Madueke or would you rather have Eze at moving forward? I think I'd probably would rather have Madueke.
Absolutely. If Chelsea can score goals. Crystal Palace, they don't do that. They don't score goals.
I
feel like it's like the London's most expensive book club at Selhurst Park or something. I don't know what they're doing over there.
I'm going to have to figure out what to do soon with Eze in my squad, and I probably actually wouldn't go Madueke. I probably would go Brennan Johnson. Which now I feel like I'm just constantly points changing. But what are you going to do? Pick players who aren't. I mean,
if you were points chasing Brennan Johnson, you would have got him a couple weeks ago.
I know.
Now you're
exactly.
Just trying to fix your team.
Now I'm just trying to exactly. That's right. So any other interesting takeaways from game week 2 here, Brandon?
Well, so it's Chelsea. Nico Jackson, I think, has been a real disappointment for people who brought him in the last couple of weeks. It looks like he turned a corner, and no, we're getting the same old Jackson. The last couple
getting
of
emotional
weeks.
Over there. Yeah.
The only other player I'd call out here would be Aina for Nottingham Forest, who and they showed it again against Chelsea, even though they let in a goal. Incredibly strong defensive outfit. And I think that while Chris Wood is probably the focus of a lot of fantasy teams, a Forest defender is good value.
Yeah, I mean, there is a good team. I'm like, it's fun to have a team. Like, I don't know, it's like a little bit like Brentford. It's like just when a team feels like they're like competently managed and they've built a good squad. And it's
I'm
just
shocked,
like
honestly, because I thought it was kind of a little bit of a circus there when they first came up, and
absolutely.
I like have to put my hands up and say good on you because they look really well oiled now.
I agree. I absolutely agree. All right, let's move on to game week 3 here, Brandon. Let's see. Allison Becker is at the top here. He had a couple of good. Didn't he get 10 points this week as well? I feel like we've had some nice returns from Becker the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that he's kind of neck and neck with Raya. Now that Raya and Arsenal defense has kind of come back down to earth, I do wonder if, with Arsenal defensive double up not maybe being to certain people's taste now, that if you can't afford Trent like me, if you could stretch to Becker, and I know that you don't want to have premium goalkeepers on.
Sure, we don't have to revisit that discussion, but yes, yeah.
But I'm gonna take the mic. I'll meet you if I have to.
Okay.
I think Allison remains an interesting goalkeeper pick for that reason, as in terms of just like, because like defense is kind of just like doing me in here.
Yeah, I know.
And you kind of have to pay to play to get defensive points at the moment.
It's interesting to see your boy Sugawara with 7 points in the game week 3.
We all knew he had it in him. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, there's no better sign of how crud defense is this season, Brandon, that the best possible team you could have put together for game week 3, the 3 defenders you had 7 points, 777, and 8 points for Allison Becker. Like, there was not even a defender that got a clean sheet and attacking return, or 2 bonus points, right? It was like 7 was the most you could possibly get, which is kind of insane. And then looking ahead, we have, again, 2 of the big 4, Salah and Haaland. Again, just further maybe advancing the idea that maybe you just really do need to find a way to have 3 out of 4 in your squad. If anyone were wild carding right now, I would suggest that you can pick the 3. If you feel like Salah is gonna, he just had a weird post international break run and he's gonna reassert himself, fine, like totally reasonable. Liverpool are the top of the table and he's the 90-minute man, right? Like, more or less. I did get subbed actually early in this one, but in general he is. So and I think otherwise, Diaz there again, just a really great start for him to the season. Calvert-Lewin with the return again kind of feels like a false, a false idol, whatever it is, right? It sort of deluded us.
His bandwagon ran right into a brick wall. It's
yeah, exactly. And then Mbomo starts to get his big. This was right when we started to like kick around. Oh, maybe we were a little dismissive of it. Mbomo and Havertz were probably the two best players that we sold short.
This was the week that the new Mbomos dropped, and everyone was like, "I got to cop me a pair of those Mbomos. Those look really sweet."
Yeah, exactly. And even then, I feel like it took us another week or so to really get there.
We needed the paycheck to come in.
Yeah, that's true. We needed a paycheck to come in. All right, let's move on to game week 4 now. All right, so let's see. This one is. So the defense came roaring back in this game.
I hate this team. Oh my God! What?
Yeah, it's so true. It's all full of people I have not owned this year who have been killing me. Yeah, Sanchez with 15 points, Gabriel with 15 points, Aina again. This is one of the reasons why it's interesting to go through these best of the game week teams. Is you start to see these like little 4.5 million people show up again and again, and you're like, oh, maybe I actually should be taking them more seriously for my fantasy team, right? Because they're consistent enough at their low price. McNeil cracks it for the first time. Obviously, he's had an amazing start to the year. Actually, I was watching a little bit of the Everton match yesterday. He had a big chance and totally fluffed his lines late. I think he could have done more with it. Mateta thought he was going to kind of press on from this one, right? He got the brace in this match, and that was kind of it. And I don't know why they can't figure it out. He hasn't been starting the last couple of matches. He came on as a sub this weekend, which I think has obviously played into his returns and
played just one half against Manchester United. So I think we'll talk about Mateta at some point later this season. But like
I agree. But all things being, all that being said, he's played in all 7 matches so far this season, and only has 2 goals, which I think it has to be considered a little disappointing. No matter
2 goals just coming in 1 match.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
That's worrying.
I didn't know that Mario Lemina went by Mario Jr. on the website. That sounds like a Nintendo character, Mario Jr. But I think he's in the center of this team too. That's Mario Jr.
Yeah, Lemina, Ndidi, Dallo, and Delict. This is just the dark side of team of the week.
Absolutely. And then Haaland again. I mean, it's funny. We don't even talk about him because it's just like when he's on, he's just so incredibly consistent. And I just can't tell if any of it is a dip in form or if it's really just that they're just like, they're now relying on Gundogan, who they let go of. Right. And it's like, he's now the only, he's not played well. And he's the only player that apparently can create chances on that team. Like Bernardo Silva has been okay. I guess he's maybe the, maybe I'm selling him a little bit short. I mean, he's brilliant, but like it puts a lot of onus on Bernardo Silva for sure, right? And especially with KDB out, and Foden just cannot get going this season.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I do have to blame. I feel like Pep's got something to do with it. I wouldn't put all the blame on Foden. It's like the way his minutes have been managed. I understand he played.
There must be some rationale for it, right? It can't just be the Euros.
I guess everyone wants to say there's rationale because it's Pep. Obviously, Pep is a great manager, but I don't know.
He's weird.
He's fallible.
He is, but like it's just
that City team looks so dusty to me.
Yeah, but I mean, like Pep is typically in his corner. I don't know. It is a strange one for sure. So
wait, Pep is typically in Foden's corner?
Oh, I mean, like in a sense that he's always like, oh, Foden is the. The way Pep goes over the top with, like Foden is the greatest player.
He's like famously like not given minutes to Foden throughout his entire ascendancy.
Until last season though, but I feel like last season he finally it was like that felt like the emergence, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, let me just quickly pull it up here. I'm trying to recall. Foden had last season. I don't know if I'll be able to actually pull up how many starts he had, but he was let's see here. He was, do I have the starts? So he started 33 matches last year, 19 goals, 8 assists, played, almost 3,000 minutes, which was 1,000 more than the season before, but far and away the most minutes he'd ever played for the club. 19 goals, 8 assists. This year's 0 goals, 0 assists. Just really, really strange. So like you said, maybe he's being managed carefully, but I don't know. It's just weird. I don't know. It's a strange one.
It's an oddity. Okay.
It's an
next
oddity.
week.
All right. Let's move on to game week 5 here. Okay. So Nicholas Jackson is the star of this week with 16 points.
Well done, Nico.
Yeah. And Sanchez again cracks the best team. So credit to him. I'm trying to, what's the story here? We have Luis Diaz.
First attacking return for Morgan Rogers, perhaps.
Yes, I think so. And he got those. He jumped to 3 bonus points, I think, like late. Yes. It was like this season's all about the late bonus point changes. And so he was the beneficiary of that this time around. Dibbling emerged as a 4.5 million option. So congrats to Dibbling.
What's that Bill Bryson book? Like the
road to little dribbling. Yes, it's very close.
I always think of Bill Bryson when I see this dude.
I do too. So, I mean, he hasn't really done anything. It's all 1-pointers and the 11-pointer, but still, there's at least some potential there for the end of your bench. I will say Dallo. I mean, we are consistently seeing Man United defenders in these. I mean, for all the chaos that I feel like we've had with them this season, they have put together, I think, at least 3 clean sheets out of 7. Is that right? I think
it's
4.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 clean sheets in 7 is impressive. I think even more surprisingly, 3 of the 4 were in away matches. So, there's a kind of defensive. I don't know. There's the bones of a good defensive team there, and it's just. But obviously the pieces aren't all working right now. So, and Bruno with another blank. I mean, it's it's weird start to the season.
It's over, Bruno.
I know I got roasted for suggesting that Man United flip him in January, flip him for cash or a younger player. I don't know. Yeah,
just put him on Craigslist like anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Like a house. Flip him like a house you restored, like an old house that's about to fall apart. You want someone else to be holding the bag.
There's just so many other. There's so many other deeper issues there. Obviously.
I worry about the cracks in the foundation on that buy, Brandon. All right, so I guess that's pretty much like a lot of repeats here. Trent with 11 points, and then he did get 8 points this week as well. So he's kind of like one of the few bright spots. I felt great about fantasy after the first game week of. After the first match of Game Week 7.
Every weekend this season, I have had a green arrow on Saturday and a red arrow come
Sunday.
It's really annoying.
Yeah. Exactly. Did you get? I'm surprised you had a green after the Saka match. That one was a killer.
Yeah, I did.
I guess you had Havertz,
believe it or not. Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to Game Week 6. The double clean sheet, maybe a little fluky because of the red card, but the double clean sheet for Spurs. Gahey, I think that he got 9, but I think that was from a goal scored. I don't think that was I think he got a goal scored and no bonus in that one.
This is real fantasy. This team of the game week. You've got the James Justin brace against Arsenal. It's all over the shop. This team,
the flukiest brace. I mean, credit to him, but like a crazy brace.
Yeah, and then Trossard and Martinelli, like the two, but also two random-ish assets from Arsenal.
Yep.
Baleba. Every time I see Baleba, I have to make a pun to myself about belaboring the point. But yeah, I think what we take away here is that McNeil is for real at the start of the season.
Ooh,
if we were ever to have him, and then Delap makes his second appearance. So I like this emergence of the Delap narrative.
Yeah, and Palmer, I think for the third time, pops up in here with 25 points. Insane return.
Hold on while I fall out of my chair.
Absolutely ridiculous. And then Watkins as well. So I think in both them, I mean, I guess they got to combine 8 points between them this week. So a little bit of a disappointment in 7, but let's move on to 7 now, Brandon. The final game week of our review. There we go. The man himself, Jordan Pickford, with 15 points on the week. Yeah,
get out of here.
Yeah, incredible.
Just let Gordon score. Let the young man feel good about.
That's true. I mean, they're about to leave for an international break. It's poor form to hurt the confidence of one of your teammates.
It is absolute gamesmanship by Pickford there, and I don't care for it. Stinks. Should have been a yellow.
16-pointer for our boy Saka. Kovacic again, so 2 out of 7 for him, popping up in there. And what else stands out here? I guess
Buena notte.
How about West Ham finally finding a little vein of form?
So this is it. I guess it's less about West Ham for me, seeing Bowen and Antonio here. It's more about Ipswich just being a little over their skis, and I don't know. Does the manager, does he get away with this? Because the whole narrative is like he's destined for greater things.
Well, I mean, I feel like they've been fine, like right in terms of the Ipswich aren't even in the relegation zone right now, right? The Crystal Palace are actually lower than them right now in the table. And I mean, right now we have Leicester and Ipswich are actually both out of the bottom with because Leicester nicked a win this week as well. So it's Wolves and Southampton are both on 1 point right now to start the season. And equally, I mean, Wolves are just like, it's even more than West Ham. I don't understand what's going on with some of these clubs this season, right? Like Wolves and West Ham have been fine for a few years now, and it's like now they've shorn of any identity. And I guess the difference is that West Ham still have Jared Bowen, right? And he is such a quality player that they're probably going to be fine this year just because of him, right?
Some veterans.
And Kudus is very good too.
Yeah, and just having actual midfielders from Paqueta to Souček, whereas Wolves are I can't really speak too much to Wolves, but I do think that they're just lightweight, and with their manager being like uber lightweight at the end of the day is a problem.
So, but we do have eight Nori from Wolves did correct the team of the game week. So Brandon, fantasy and the table don't always align, do they? Johnny Evans, I mean, incredible that he's still
must buy.
Okay, let me. I'm gonna quiz you right now. How old do you think Johnny Evans is? I'm gonna look him up. I'll make a guess and you make a guess. How old do you think Johnny Evans is?
35.
I was gonna say 36. So let's see. We're both pretty close here. Johnny Evans is 36.
There you go.
But let's see. He turns 37 in January. So he is.
So we're both wrong.
No, I'm right as of today. This was as of, but at the end of the calendar year, I'm still going to be right.
That's the thing about the Kings of the Game Week shows, though, Josh. They're evergreen, so a lot of people will be listening to this years from now.
That's true. You have 10, 20 years from now, perhaps, right?
This could be the episode we put in that time capsule we keep talking about.
Yeah, or the one we shoot out to space and Voyager 1 or whatever. Sure. Yeah, exactly. Voyager 4, whatever the next one is. All right, so but Bowen and Antonio with 18 points. Jeez, incredible from him.
The death of Greaves. Unfortunately, R.I.P. Greaves.
I know. I've always loved Antonio. I mean, he's a really easy player to like. I've always felt, and so I'm always happy for him when he does well. And so it feels like every year he's got some crazy some one game week where he gets 18 to 20 points. Did he score like 5 goals in a match a couple years ago?
If you're playing pickup football and Antonio could be picked for your team, I'm picking this guy.
Yeah,
I'm picking him.
Yeah, I agree. He'd be a fun pick. He'd be good vibes for the whole team, and obviously, he can score too. So, all right, I think that's the perfect note to end on then, Brian. But James Justin, actually, how about that? We'll toss in one more shout out for him because James Justin cracked the teams of the game week, Kings of the Game Week 2 weeks in a row, picked up 10 points, clean sheet, assist, 2 bonus, did get a yellow card as well. So back-to-back double-digit returns for him. Well done.
Yeah, great player. Great player. Glad to see him back.
Happy to see him back. Yeah, because he lost an entire season, right, to injury. So. All right. Well, that is your Kings of the Game Week, Brandon. We'll do another review roughly, 10 game weeks or so from now. We'll catch up a little bit, see where we are. So that's it. That's your pod for this week. We'll be back next week. We'll talk more about Game Week 7 in that pod. We'll dig into it a little more. This is kind of just more of a recap episode. We'll, we don't like to get too much into the game week before we know who's come down with a season-ending knee injury over the international break. That's usually something that we see. So let's see who falls. But if you enjoy the pod and you want to support the cheaters, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating, or you can just give us a review on Spotify or Apple just to help more people find the pod. That's really the reason we ask for those reviews. It's just to help us help people find us. So so that is the pod for this week. Brendan, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Thanks as always to producers Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wagner Lodahl, our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Babs Kuhn, Rom Frost, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, as he does it, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tislov, Fro Jacobson. Going back to Craig Jackson, for example, Friday I was unwinding from work and I watched the Sunderland Leeds match, and Melier is still goalkeeping for
he was
Leeds.
Young, right? Like when he first got to start there, he was like 20 years old. So
he made the most incredible howler in like the 96th minute to allow Sunderland to draw level, and now Sunderland still atop the championship table. You have not seen anything like this. Like look at Melier howler, and Craig Jackson, as a diehard Leeds supporter, he was beside himself.
The crazy thing is that isn't Junior Firpo still playing for Leeds too? That's the. Oh, did he really? Yeah. Oh, I mean, that hurts my.
Even
my
crazier, Junior Hoylett is playing for Hibernian FC in Scotland. So the juniors are at it again.
Oh, that's great. Great for
the
juniors.
Right. Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tislov, Fred Jacobson, The Saint, Gareth H., Shalin F. Kadakia, Rishi Nigam, Noah Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Fenderstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, the 3 Jims, James Murray Wood, James C., James Holland, Jack, and Craig at Total Maths Tutoring. It's never too late, Josh, to brush up on your math skills.
That's true.
Check out Craig for all your math tutoring needs.
That's right.
Rate, review, subscribe. I can't wait to big up math tutoring at the end of every podcast now. This is very fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Rate, review, subscribe. As you said, follow us wherever you get social media for all this information and more. Visit our website at alwayscheating.com.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And we will talk to you soon. Bye.